It's only Chennis Berry's first year at South Carolina State, but he already has the Bulldogs poised to be a threat in the MEAC this year. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey's over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, if you go to FanDuel.com to get started and you put down your first $5 bet, you get $200 back in bonus bets. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the SWAC, what I believe to be the SWAC game of the year between Jackson State and FAMU. It's been moved to ESPNU, and I want to look at the trend and how that follows some of the other highlight matchups of 2024. Now, in segment 2, I'll look at the top 2 teams. I think you can have them in either order: North Carolina Central, FAMU, FAMU, North Carolina Central. But those are the top 2, and that is what we will be evaluating in segment 2. I feel like Absol in track 2. Anyway, speaking of 2s, this is a 2-part segment about South Carolina State. They've moved into the top 5 of our NCAA HBCU rankings. We'll look at that because I think that they are a team to watch out for. But then also just the first 15 minutes against their opponent, Tennessee Tech, this weekend, that was beautiful. That was a masterclass of football. So I want to start there. I know that this is a very wide-ranging show. We talk about the MEAC, we talk about the SWAC, we talk about the CIAA, we talk about the SIAC, we talk about a bunch of schools. You combine everybody in there, you're looking at 40 schools, right? Something around that number. It's very rare that with a show in which we're talking about that many schools, I can just come in and I can narrow in on a quarter of action for a game that is not our game of the week. And it's just rare that we do that. I don't want to say it's rare that I can do it. It's rare that I do it. But I wanted to break that mold today. I wanted to do something a little bit new. I wanted to do something that you don't typically get on Locked On HBCU. So I'm going to break down that first 15 minutes of South Carolina State's win over Tennessee Tech, and specifically that second drive by the offense. But I'm a defensive guy, so let's start off with the defense. First off, the only thing that went wrong was the missed extra point that whole quarter. They scored 13 points, held Tennessee Tech to 0, and they ended up winning that game 22-20. So that was really what gave them the cushion, and they held on from there. Defensively, they started off really well. You have a drive that gets to about the 40 near midfield. Didn't cross midfield, but it got near. And then you force a fumble. I thought that they didn't give Jaden Jones his proper love. I thought that Jaden Jones was the player who touched the quarterback that led to the step up. Right, when you really look at it, it was an unforced error. It was an unforced error by the quarterback in which he was trying to step up. He literally, not the catchphrase for fumble, he literally put the ball on the ground as he was trying to step up. And when he placed the ball on the ground, he lost control. And then that's when, used the slogan or the catchphrase for fumble, that's when he put the ball on the ground, right? That's a stupid tongue twister, but basically he put the ball on the ground while he was trying to step up in the pocket, and it ended up leading to him losing control and fumbling the football. That is what happened. But I thought that Jaden Jones was the guy who touched him as he was stepping up. I went on to the play-by-play because I wanted to see if they gave anybody credit for the sack, and they did. It gave it to Sean Hall. I thought it was Jones, but it was a very tight one. It very easily could have been another player coming in from the other side. The pocket was collapsing. That was great pressure. They continued that until the next drive. Tennessee Tech got the ball in Bulldog territory. In Bulldog territory, it was near the 50 again, but they ended up forcing a 3 and out. For you to start the drive in your own territory, and that wasn't because of the offense's fault. It was a really good kickoff return. But for you to start a drive in your own territory as a defense and you do not give up any points, that is a big deal. And guess who came in on the pressure on third down? Jaden Jones. He didn't get the sack, and he's probably kicking himself for it, but he got the pressure that led to the quarterback rushing out of the pocket, spilling out to his right. And I think that's what really derailed the play. And everything else just fell down from there. There was another player, 97, who got a pressure after the quarterback got out of the pocket. That defense was locked down in the first quarter. It just was. Then the next drive, whatever. We're not even worried about the third drive. Now let's switch over to the offense, because the offense, to me, the offense is what really is the highlight. That's what people really want to talk about. Eric Phoenix came over, not from Benedict, but he took a little time in Murray State. But we all know that him picking South Carolina State had a lot to do with the fact that he was at Benedict College with Chennis Berry. So Eric Phoenix has increased his yardage every single game. He was in the hundreds, low hundreds the first game, high hundreds the second game, 200s, then the 300s, now the 400s. I'm not here to tell you he's going to go to the 500s. At some point, it's going to plateau. At some point, he's going to even out, and he's probably going to drop. Like, that is going to happen. But I don't know if he's going to drop a lot. I'm not expecting him to go 400 yards every game, but if he's consistently in the high 200s, we're having a different conversation. I think that Eric Phoenix makes them way more dangerous. And what Eric Phoenix was able to do, I think this is the specific part, because the first play of the game was a screen for a touchdown. Perfectly timed, perfectly blocked, screen for a touchdown. But you look at that second drive. The second drive, South Carolina State faced a little bit of adversity. They started on the 1 yard line. And after the first couple of plays, they showed an absolute masterclass, an absolute teach tape on how to run the RPO. And that all comes down to Eric Phoenix. Mind you, when running the RPO, you don't want linemen downfield. You don't want defense to be able to react to the fake or to get. You have to make quick decisions. That's exactly what he did. And I mean, it was absolutely perfect. He completed 5 passes in the first half, or in the first quarter, for over 200 yards. And on that second drive, they run it. They're at the 1 yard line. They run it. Nothing happens. They go on the second down. They roll him out to his right, which is okay because he's a left-handed quarterback. No, actually, that's opposite. He went to the right, which isn't okay, but it showed his ability to flip the hips and deliver a good pass. He did that. Now, from play 3 on to play 5, because it was a 5-play drive. From play 3 to 5, they ran the RPO each time. Actually, I'm wrong on that. It was 2 plays. It was back-to-back. It was play 3 and 4. So on that first play, he gets the read option. Boom, he sees Caden High coming over the middle of the field, about 15 or so yards down the field. Boom, hits him quick. Turns out to be like a 20-some yard game. The next one was the most impressive one. And this is what I mean when I say absolute teach tape, because that first one was quick eyes delivered to your receiver. This one required a little bit more patience, a little bit more ad-libbing, but he also baited the defensive back. So read option, obviously you take the ball, snap, you take it in, you read, and then you're going to run. Either you're going to hand it off or you're going to pull it, and you're going to run yourself as the quarterback. He pulls it as if he's about to run as the quarterback, and he does come downhill. So naturally, when you see the quarterback coming downhill, the defensive back says, I'm going to meet him, and we're going to stop the run. So this was not a read option. This was an RPO. You forgot the P in the middle, not the RO, but the RPO. Now, when he comes crashing down, he leaves his wide receiver. He says, boop, right over the top, places it basically in the receiver's hand with how beautifully it was thrown. And it's another 40-plus yard touchdown pass. This was an absolute masterclass in the RPO on those 2 plays. The quick decisions, the ability to bait a cornerback in, throw it to the wide receiver, all without having his offensive lineman going downfield. This was beautiful. 13-0. The only problem is that they couldn't make the extra point on that play. Then you look at the next drive, they started the 5, and they take that one all the way down to scoring position. Taking into the second quarter. In the second quarter, they missed their field goal. You want to get that together, but if we're talking about the first 15 minutes, they had a drive that started at the 1, they had a drive that started at the 5, and they pushed it all the way down in the scoring position both times within the first 15 minutes. And on the drive that didn't happen, they scored on the first freaking play. These guys are for real. It typically takes people a couple of years to get it together, but I think that they're number 5 in the rankings, right? And I think they deserve that. They 100% deserve that. I think that Chennis Berry has these guys fighting, and they are who I thought Morgan State was going to be. Morgan State is still, I still think Morgan State is who I think they're going to be as far as what I think they could do, but not necessarily how I thought the team would look. I still think that they can upset somebody because that defense is so good. But South Carolina State has the best passing attack. They're number two in scoring offense, number 2 in scoring defense. The top passing attack, Eric Phoenix has been on fire. Duhart is top 5 in rushing. Caden High and Justin Smith-Brown are both top 1 and 2 in receiving yards in the conference. This is a high-octane offense. They don't have a large number of rushing yards, but they do have a guy who can get a lot in DeAndre Duhart. So this is a threat. All paired out with the number 2 scoring defense in the conference. This is a team that could upset anybody. I cannot wait to watch. Now I feel like South Carolina State versus versus North Carolina Central is a game that I really want to watch. It's a much different game. It's one that I'm very excited to see. But you know what? Since we're talking about top 2 teams, because right now they look like the top 2 teams, this feels like the second best team in the MEAC, and they feel like a real threat in a way that I didn't think they would be in the first year under Chennis Berry. But if we're talking top 2, we got to talk about FAMU and North Carolina Central, the top 2 teams in Black college football. Let's break that down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime, and Gametime is the only place I would tell you for all of your ticket deals. Typically, I talk about last minute, but what if you don't want to procrastinate? What if you just want to go ahead and be proactive and get yourself something right now for the middle of November? Is Gametime still a good option? You're doggone right it is. It is still a good option because they're still going to have the lowest prices. It doesn't matter if it's 2 months in advance or 2 days or maybe even 2 hours. Matter of fact, Gametime actually allows you to pick up tickets an hour after they kick off. I have tickets to the Saints versus Buccaneers game this Sunday. Maybe I'll be able to watch Spencer Rattler make his NFL debut. I'm certainly hoping so. But I get all of those tickets. Gametime. It's the only place I would go. I'm not telling you to go any place that I wouldn't go myself. So go ahead and download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, and when you do that, you get $20 off your first purchase. I'm telling you, they give you the best deals. And I'm telling you, you can get $20 off the best deals. I don't know. Seems pretty simple to me. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On LSU. I thought Matt Moscona had a pretty fun rant the other day about NIL deals and boosters and things of that nature. So go ahead and check that out. We've looked at South Carolina State, who looks like they're a top 2 team in the MEAC thus far. I think we're going to talk about the MEAC in general tomorrow. I really feel like I want to look at how the state of the conference. But now talking about the top 2 teams, let's talk about North Carolina Central and the FAMU. We do our HBCU rankings every week. This is a 2-part this time where we looked at the number 5 team in South Carolina State. Though I already had my points I want to give about them, I did think them creeping into the top 5 was a big deal and well-deserved. They have a really nice win over Tennessee Tech, something that Tennessee State does not have. So I did think that climbing over them was appropriate. Now, FAMU and North Carolina Central at 1 and 2. It makes me wonder, what does North Carolina Central have to do to jump FAM? I don't think that in my rankings, they're already there. I told you yesterday, North Carolina Central is the best team in HBCU football. I don't think, just to be very brief about it, and this is probably one of my biggest points, so I want to share this one. Again, I don't think they have a glaring hole. I think their inability to stop a running quarterback is concerning. It's not to sit here and say that they're a perfect team and I haven't seen any way you could beat them. That is a way to defeat North Carolina Central. We've seen against Alabama State. We've seen Norfolk State try to attempt it. And then we've seen it this week where a quarterback had a 72-yard rush. But that being said, I would just say they're susceptible to big plays by quarterback run. FAMU has a struggling run defense, in my opinion. I'm not satisfied with that at all. That's why I have North Carolina Central over FAMU. But it makes me wonder, if you're not me, you're not doing that. That's fine. What does Central have to do to jump FAMU? In these rankings, I kind of feel like FAMU has to lose. I kind of feel like North Carolina Central can't do enough good to pass up FAMU. FAMU has to do enough bad to drop under Central. That's just what it feels like. And I've been doing this for 3 years, Jesus. I've been doing this for 3 years and talking about these rankings and everything. And I feel like I have a decent idea of where Stan Becton, how he grades and whatnot. I feel like I have a decent idea of that from watching it and critiquing it for 3 years, 2.5 years. If you're talking about just the start of this one. But I'll say this. One thing we fully agree on is after the top two, then you can start mixing them up. But the top two are the top two. And it's Central and FAMU. I don't care. For me, it's FAMU. I mean, for me, it's Central, then FAMU. For him, it's FAMU, then Central. But I don't think that I can put anybody else in that group. I don't know if it's a large gap, but it is a divide. I do think that it's difficult to put Jackson State above FAMU, even though I think that FAMU could lose to Jackson State in a week. I really do. That's going to be a very fun game. I'm already thinking about how I'm going to do that game of the week. That's going to be our segment 3, where we talk about how it's been moved as far as television and whatnot. But for me, FAMU is a team that has been really effective, has been very resilient, has been very impressive throughout the first 5 games of their season. Yeah, because they didn't play the 6th one. They beat Norfolk State. I don't know how good Norfolk State is. They beat South Carolina State. That win looks a lot better now. You got to give them credit. They have a solid victory on their resume. They just knocked off Alabama State. I think they showed that they have a good offense. This is a good team. I think Jackson State is too, but I think that Jackson State has had some question marks, more question marks. Yeah, there we go. FAMU hasn't had that many question marks. It's really just the run defense. And I kind of feel like a lot of people don't pay attention to that as much because they make big plays when they need to, even in run defense. But you look at Jackson State, on the other hand, they've had questions at quarterback. They've been not up and down, because I think that Morgan struggled against whoever that second opponent was. I can't remember. No, he didn't play against the second opponent. That's what it was. Cam McCoy played. But just the back and forth with the quarterback situation, I am not a fan of that. When it comes to the back and forth, that gives me concern. That makes me feel like, can I really trust you? And then the one game where I felt like they both struggled, which was against Grambling, that's all I needed to see. After you keep going back and forth with your quarterbacks, all I need to see is you both struggle in the game. I lose a lot of trust in that. So that's really why I feel like there's a divide. But that being said, Jacoby Morgan's on October 19th. If he's on, they could easily beat FAMU. And I don't think that, and also, I say this, FAMU, even if Morgan is on, could still beat Jackson State. I think they're very close. But what they've done and what they've accomplished has led to a clear divide between 2 and 3. Let's see what else is up here. So you have Jackson State still at 3. Grambling still at 3. Jackson State at 4. That hasn't changed. Tennessee State's dropped down to 6. Morgan State at 7. Hampton at 8. Alcorn's climbing up the ranks. They're in the top 10. I think this is for the first time. They're at 9 now. And Alabama State closes it off at 10. This is, to me, I don't want to phrase this. This is a easy prediction up top. And then as you get lower, you're like, are they really players? We'll see. Alcorn versus Grambling is going to be fun. I think that's going to be our game of the week this week. But it's going to be a good one, man. You don't hear Howard in there. You hear 3 MEAC teams, but you don't hear Howard. It's very interesting because Howard has not lived up to what they're supposed to be. They've been kind of disappointing. We're going to get to that tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to open it up with a look at the MEAC, unless we have some huge breaking news. But as we push forward, let's get it to the SWAC game of the year. I think that's a bold thing to say when you're only entering week 7, but Jackson State versus FAMU is the SWAC game of the year. And quite frankly, I think it's deserving of being on ESPNU, and it kind of continues the trend of deserving games actually getting their promise. So let's look at that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. The NFL is here. That's my favorite sport. That's the one that I think that you should take advantage of and you should go put your money down on. But the NBA is here tee. Preseason is here. You can talk about superlatives as far as predicting who's going to get what. You can look at the WNBA. You look at the MLB, everything in between, man. Devontae Adams' next trade stop. You can talk about LSU Ole Miss. You can talk about Grambling versus Alcorn. I just thought about that because those are 2 Louisiana versus Mississippi teams. That should be fun. Put some money down on it, man. Go to FanDuel.com. And if you're new to FanDuel, you get $5 back. Or excuse me, you get $200 back in bonus bets if you put down a $5 bet. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com. Choose your sport, whether it's on the court, whether it's on the field, whether it's on the diamond, whether it's tennis. It can be anything. You just go ahead and go to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to make every moment more. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day or making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm wearing a Red Sox jersey. I'm talking about, let's see if the Red Sox are even still in it. It appears not. Oh, are they? I don't know, man. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be. Yeah, I'm just wearing the jersey, man. I'm just wearing the jersey. Okay. I have no allegiances. I'm a Rangers fan and a Dodgers fan. Anywho, that doesn't even matter anymore. The SWAC game of the year has been moved to ESPNU. And the game was completely deserving of the national stage. Because if you're looking at major HBCU games, I think they've done a pretty consistent job of airing those on ESPN. And I'm not talking about ESPN Plus. They typically get aired nationally. I think it just kind of happens that way. Maybe. Yeah, it kind of just happens that way. But the SWAC MEAC Challenge, start of the season, aired nationally. Bama State versus North Carolina Central. Coming into the season, that was week 1. So at that time, huge matchup. Bayou Classic, SWAC Championship. I think the SWAC Championship is on ESPN something. I don't think it's on Plus. I could be wrong. If that's the case, then I'll eat that. Then you look at Celebration Bowl. Those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 biggest games of the season going into this season, in my opinion. The SWAC MEAC Challenge, like I said, opens up the season. The Celebration Bowl closes out the season. I think that's very simple, easy to understand. Bama State versus North Carolina Central was, to me, and had Andrew Body not gotten hurt, that's literally a Celebration Bowl preview, in my opinion. I've seen enough from Alabama State this year defensively to say that if Andrew Body was on the field, everything that I felt about them coming into 2024 would have came to fruition. I genuinely believe that, guys. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. I'm even more confident in that because I think that Body had the talent, and I think he would have provided the consistency. I think he would have provided the talent with his legs too. Like, it just, man, I'd be upset if I was a Hornet. I ain't gonna lie to you. The Bayou Classic, that's the game, man. That's the HBCU game. I don't care what nobody says. Growing up where I came up, that was the game. Having family in Louisiana, that was the HBCU showcase. And I will never move off of that. If you ever ask me what are the biggest games of the season, I will always say the Bayou Classic. Grambling and Southern may have to be absolutely garbage and the game be garbage. Like, all 3 of those things have to be true for probably like 15 years before I stop saying this. 15 is dramatic. 10. Seriously. And I don't see that happening. This is the game. This is the HBCU showcase, in my opinion. It's the most visible, recognizable HBCU game. That's how I feel. And I know that I'm biased based off where my family's from, based off of what my experiences were watching a game like that. I get that. That's cool, though. The SWAC Championship. It's the only championship we have on this level, on the FCS level. The MEAC doesn't have one. And then you have the Celebration Bowl. Like I said, I already said I closed out the season. The other one that you can throw in there is Howard versus Central. I don't know if that's going to end up being it. I almost feel like every other game, because you got to remember Bama State versus North Carolina Central was the Orange Blossom Classic, so they had their own different little TV situation. But Howard versus Central, maybe if Howard gets their stuff together, that's another one I would have thrown out there. I think FAMU versus Bama State had a 4 out of 10 chance of getting this, but the brands of the Rattlers and the Jackson State Tigers was just too big to pass up. This ends up being the game of the year for yet another year. It's the one that we're all looking towards because of the injuries in Alabama State, because of the failures to live up to the expectations in Alabama State. But you're looking at Jackson State, you're looking at FAMU, and you're looking at 2 teams that you think could be competing, and whoever wins this matchup will win the SWAC East. That's how you feel going into this game. It is once again the game of the year. It is once again the game of the year. So, yeah, now I want to wrap it up with a quick little cool story. That's South Carolina State volleyball. South Carolina State volley. Also, That's my rewind sound. I don't think it was good, but that's what it was. I think that I think at every game except for the 5 I named, which have their own special connotation, none of those are just regular games. All of them are all flex. Actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Central versus Howard is on ESPNU. I think that's on ESPNU on a Friday. It is. That is on a Friday. That is every single premier game that you're looking at. South Carolina State versus North Carolina Central is also there. Every single premier game that you're talking about in Black college football in 2024 going into the season outside of this. And I think some people had questions on what they were going to be as far as Jackson State and FAMU. Every single other premier game is nationally televised. This follows the trend. Cool story. South Carolina State breaks their losing streak in volleyball. The last MEAC win that the Lady Bulldogs had was 2018. And at that time, Savannah State was in the MEAC. I know because Savannah State is who South Carolina State defeated. The last time that their volleyball team defeated a team that is currently in the MEAC was 2015, in which they defeated North Carolina Central. That is their most successful season in about a decade, okay? They won 4 games that year. Since 2018, South Carolina State has won 3 matches. That's it, 3 matches in 142 attempts, 3 of them. I'm not about to break down the math and whatnot, but I can tell you right now, that is a very, 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 very small percentage of games. Actually, I am a nerd, and I am going to because I want to know the exact numbers. So you divide 3 by 142. That's how you find out percentages, guys. That is 0.02. So that's 2%. That's 2% of the games over the last 6 years. This is a big streak that you've broken because they hadn't won a MEAC game since, and that's 76 straight losses. They're on game number 2 win number 2. So being on win number 2, you've already surpassed every single season total that you've had since 2015 when you won 4 games. I'll be pasted to my seat, pasted to my laptop to see if they do any better moving forward. Maybe they can get 3 wins and then they'll complete. I don't know. They'll have as many wins in 2024 as they've had since 2028 or 2018. That's a cool story, man. That is a pretty cool story. 76 straight MEAC losses, and you come out and you beat Morgan State. I salute you, South Carolina State volleyball. Now, on tomorrow's episode, like I said, we'll be looking at our games to watch that aren't our game of the week. But then also, I'm going to look at the MEAC as a whole because I don't think it's that many great games, and there's not many things I really want to get into that will stop it. So unless it's breaking news, that is what we'll open up tomorrow's segment with. So in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.